Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Stewart Kraintz, and we have another amazing guest for you this week. But before I go ahead and introduce her, please be sure to like, subscribe, hit that little bell so you get the update notifications every time we have a new episode come out. We are currently posting every Wednesday at 6 a.m. However, at some point this year, we will be going to multiple episodes a week. So you do not want to miss any of the content, any of the messages, any of the guests that we have for you. And without further ado, I want to jump right in, get our conversation going with today's guest. She is somebody that's actually been on our show before, but her episode is still one of the most listened to up to this point. So I knew we had to have her back on again. She is a licensed life coach through the International Coaching Federation. And I'm just going to say it has been absolutely influential and instrumental in not only my coaching journey, but in my relationship that I have with my wife and also the one that I have with my creator. So I want to welcome Talie Davis-Weir back to the show. Thank you so much for being here, Talie. How are you
So
today?
good to be here again with you. Thanks, Stu. Thanks for inviting me back.
I knew we had to have you back on. The audience got so much out of your episode the last time you were here. I know that a lot has on your plate since we've had you on last. I know that you are working with more and more people, supporting them and getting their coaching accreditations through the International Coaching Federation. What do you feel like is the growth you've seen in yourself as
Mm,
the mentor leading people through this process?
gosh, that's a great question. So I feel like I have leaned into so much growth in this last year. I think probably a lot of it is, just more and more helping people. And this is the role of a coach, but then I feel like now training coaches, it just takes me to a higher level, it like pushes me even further. Seeing the greatness and what is really in other people and then drawing that out. I think that's accelerating for me as I get to do that with leaders that are, at that higher level of impact and influence on other people. So yeah, working with amazing people just continues to grow me further. It's been beautiful. That's one of the things.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there are countless ways you've seen yourself grow, but something you hit on, I would love to get your opinion on. Everybody in their life is a leader in some way, shape, or form. Everybody has a sphere of influence. They are influencing somebody or multiple somebodies, perhaps. What do you feel like in your experience supports people in stepping into and understanding themselves as leaders and owning their leadership?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the big things, honestly, is the ability to focus outside of yourself and make it not about you, but about the people that you're impacting. And that place of empathy that we do a lot of training in for coaches, but also just the leaders that I work with and the people that I coach, dialing up that ability to put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're leading and really help move them from where they are into that kind of what is next and what is possible for them, seeing who they are, the greatness in them, all of that we talked about before, and then going like, what is it that this person is made for? What is the best use of them in the world? What are their strengths?
Mm,
What are the things that when they're in that space, like you see them come alive, like looking for those places and then going, how do we get them in that sweet spot more of the time? How do we capitalize on their strengths? How do we help them come from that place where they are so motivated, understanding what they value, what they really are passionate about, the things that when you can create that, and whether this is parenting or you're the leader of some huge organization, I think it's all the same. Like this is all my kids are different, right? So it's like looking for what is it when my kiddo is in this environment, you just see them come alive. Like what are the things that are contributing to that? And then how do we get them into that sweet spot more often? How do you help them see it for themselves? And how do you help create that for them? I mean, you just see so much growth in your organization or whatever it is you're trying to have influence on in your community or culture or the world. So yeah, I think part of it's that, seeing the greatness in other people and dialing it in, helping them understand what that is and magnifying that more.
Kind of to piggyback off of that, I feel like if we're in an organization, if we have, big, wild, audacious goals, which are awesome to have, I hope everybody has huge goals that they are pursuing. Something I think about is we often are unable to get anywhere alone. Like it often takes a team or a mentor or a coach or
Mhm.
somebody in our corner to support us in getting to where we want to go. How are we as leaders able to see, like actually understand the people that we're working with so that we can get all the people, all the players working in the same direction,
Mm.
rowing the boats in the same direction, so to speak?
Great. That's great. Yeah. And I think a lot of that, obviously I train coaches, and so this is my lens, but I do think it's a really powerful lens. And that is where you are helping the people that you lead dial into that in many ways for themselves. That is the power of, like, true coaching isn't kind of glorified advice giving. It is truly partnering with another person to draw out of them what they know is in them and what they
Mhm.
believe and feel and need and want and are motivated by all of that. It's asking them questions so that they are coming to those conclusions themselves. So really powerful leadership, or yeah, I mean powerful leadership across the board is helping someone else be like incredibly self-motivated. And a lot of that comes from just helping them see and know themselves, helping them identify what are the things that are getting in my way and what do you want to do with that? And helping them come to their own path and conclusions, and then just supporting the heck out of them as they do it. And I think that's
And
why coaching is taking off like it is. People who are really truly coaching, not just kind of telling people what to do. There's a lot of things I think that get put under the umbrella of coaching that are maybe more actually mentorship or more consulting, all really good things. Counseling, mentoring. There's a lot of, I think,
Mhm.
different modalities that get put under the umbrella of coaching, but true coaching is really coming alongside and supporting someone else and coming to those things themselves. And there's so much power in that. When you're having those ahas for yourself and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that is why I do this thing. Oh, I'm self-sabotaging here. Oh, okay. This is how I'm getting in my own way. Or, oh, this is the value underneath this that I need to be focusing on or dialing into, or whatever it is. Like there's so many different things that come up in coaching, but when you're coming to those conclusions yourself, so incredibly powerful. And deciding what action you want to take with that awareness, it's amazing. Yeah.
So, Tally, how do you, when I say you, I should be clear, either you as a coach or maybe somebody listening to this themselves, how do they, as you put it, come alongside themselves, check in with themselves, really get clear on what's motivating them or maybe even what's holding them back?
Hmm. Well, and that's what, like the last question you said, something about, the power of coaching, and it really does have the power to accelerate. I think we can all do a measure of this in our own lives. Just self-reflection. If you have practices of journaling, or a lot of people pray and get to things, in that avenue. But there is something really powerful about just having a conversation with someone just
Mhm.
has your back and is there to support you and is there to look for the greatness in you and is there to challenge you in different things. I mean, there is something really powerful, whether that's, in relationships that you have with a friend or a spouse or a brother or sister, or, but there is something to even that coaching relationship that is incredibly significant because it's a neutral third party that isn't connected to any other area of your life. They're not impacted by what decision you make about whatever. They're just there to support you. There's that kind of formal rhythm in your life that you have. So I don't know. I think coaching conversations accelerate incredibly fast when you have that in your life. But really anyone that's asking questions and truly is neutral and in your corner and wants your best and just wants to help draw out whatever it is that's there for you. And there's a lot in the trainings that we do that help you do that masterfully, really powerful. But some of those things are really creating a safe environment where you build trust and safety with the person, where you're incredibly present. So some of the competencies, I guess, in the International Coaching Federation, which is the organization I train in, some of the competencies that would show up in a powerful coaching conversation that you could transfer into really any conversation for it to be powerful is that trust and safety, really bringing your presence, being right there with a person where you're giving them your full attention and you're looking for what's going on with them. You're looking at the verbals, the nonverbals, the energy. You're using your intuition to really connect and be present with, listening actively, where you have ways that you explore whatever emotions you see that come up in them. You explore the words that they choose to use because that's showing up for a reason. You're looking for energy shifts that happen there. There's a lot of ways that we listen actively. We reflect back what we hear them saying, so they know we're tracking with them and we're kind of moving together in the conversation. And then there's a whole piece where you evoke awareness in that other person. So you're exploring, like, what are the needs and the values and the wants and the beliefs and the feelings that are there. You're exploring all of that with them about where they currently are. And then you're also sort of helping them see beyond where they are into, like, what else is there and what else is possible. So moving them from where they are into another place, or helping them identify the blocks or the barriers or the limiting beliefs that are there that are having them stuck. You're just exploring together and really, just kind of looking at the terrain of their life or the current situation that they're in. And then coaching always also moves into a place of, what is it that you are learning about yourself? What are you learning about your situation? You know, like helping identify and be able to articulate succinctly the movement and the growth and the things you're noticing. And then what do you want to do with that? And getting them into a place of action and helping that action be very tangible and concrete, and like what by when, like what are you going to do with this by when, and having kind of a plan, and what support and resources do you need, and what accountability do you want to put in place for yourself, just so that things move forward and really happen. They're very proactive. So those are some of the components, I would say. Yeah, that in any relationship, if you can bring those pieces into a conversation, really powerful.
Thank you for expanding on that, Talie. And just to reflect, I feel like some of the coaching relationships I've had with past clients of mine, there's been almost like an over focus on them wanting the end result and them coming to me thinking that I'm going to like crack the whip or something,
Yeah.
and like push them, pull them, prod
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
harder than they've ever pushed themselves. And somehow they're going to magically attain this goal. But what I know to be true, and what I feel like I'm hearing you say, is that it all starts with having somebody in your corner who's really just going to listen to you fully and be totally present with you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of masterfully draw it out. Like when you create that
Mhm.
really safe space and someone can kind of let down their guards and be completely honest with themselves and another person, that alone is so significant. Just have a space where you personally feel like, I am seen and I am cared for and I am safe. Like I can be messy and I can say this and then be like, actually, I don't
Mhm.
think that's it. You can kind of be all over the place. When you have a place that you can process like that and it's confidential. I mean, there's just something very powerful about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe just for the folks listening to this who are not coaches or do not have any aspirations to become a coach,
Sure. Yeah.
maybe they just want to improve the way that they listen in their relationships with their
Absolutely.
husbands, their children, maybe even at work.
Mhm.
Where does that start? Like, I know you spoke about active listening, but
Yeah.
what are maybe a couple quick tips or tricks just to support people in listening more fully?
Yeah. This is a fun little exercise. So if you have a relationship that you can find yourself kind of regularly talking over each other, or maybe you're just like, I just want to get better at this. A really simple thing that you can do is it's kind of just a listening game where you just take a pen or something that you just have sitting on the table, whatever. And that's whoever has that is the talker. And then the other person is just
Mm.
focused on whatever the person with the pen is saying. So they're just listening. And like every minute or so, so what I hear you say, like you hand the pen to the listener and the listener gets to say, so what I hear you saying is, and they just kind of succinctly summarize what they're saying. And if the person's like, yeah, and then the listener can say, is there anything else? And you hand the pen back to the talker and they can expand on anything else that they want to say until they feel like, yeah, I'm done. I feel complete with what I'm trying to communicate. And the other person, here's what I hear. And then you can switch and that person can be the talker and the other person can be the listener. So it's just slowing down the process of conversation and really being clear about the role that I'm in right now. I'm not listening to get my point across. I'm not listening to come up with a good refute or I don't know. It's all about whoever it is that has the pen. So you can just be really clear about the like where you're at in the conversation. It's just a very simple, maybe a little mechanical at first, but it's a wonderful way to just practice listening well. And when you have the pen and you know, like, oh, I just get to be the person who's being listened to right now, there's something like you can let yourself sort of be in that receiving place and just feel heard and seen. And then when you're listening, you're dialed in and focused out. You're on that other person. Like, I really want to hear and understand. You don't have to agree, but really want to understand what the other person's saying. I would say this is a wonderful tool when there's any kind of conflict too. I mean, it's a great thing to just practice. It's great to do with your kids because it just helps them go like, oh, I get to be the one with the pen. There's something in it that slows it down. And then it also helps when you're the listener, really practice those skills of active listening and summing up and really listening to understand. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Simple and kind of fun and powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I have seen in jobs I've had in, my relationship with my wife, Jennifer, I actually feel as much as it's important to listen,
Mm.
it's almost more important for the other person to feel like I heard them and
Mhm.
that they're understood
Yeah.
and that I'm not invalidating them in any way.
Mhm, mhm. You're just here. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and just being present with them and giving them that gift of my presence and undivided attention in a world where we're all staring at our phones all day every day is actually I feel like almost like the magic key to unlocking
Mhm.
new levels of relationship with people, whether it's in a coaching capacity or
Yeah,
any other. I'm
yeah.
curious for you, Tally. I know that we're talking a bit about the coaching you do, how listening really is the basis of it all. What do you feel like people miss? Like what are the things that they don't see as mattering, whether it's in relationships and coaching that maybe if they just spend a little bit more time on, it could unlock
Hmm.
multiple layers and levels of success for themselves?
So you're talking about just someone in life or in relationships? Give me a little more context so I can get the answer to that really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
What they're missing in what kinds of ways?
yeah, so just to go back to my example earlier, I've had a lot of people come to me wanting to hire me. And like I said, they're expecting me to put them through some type of boot camp around their goals. They're expecting me to be calling them at like 9 a.m. Why haven't you gotten this, and this done?
Yeah.
When in reality, like coaching is allowing, at least in my experience, being there, walking alongside them, supporting them in understanding
Mhm.
why they are not doing the things
Yeah.
they say they want to do. I feel like listening to folks in a way they've never been listened to before is huge,
Mhm. Mhm.
being heard.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's anything else that you see in your experience that
Yeah. Yeah.
people miss.
Yeah, you're kind of touching into it a little bit when you give that example. Like what comes up for me when you talk about that, I think one of the things that we miss is that personal sense of responsibility. Because until we really get that I am the only person truly responsible for the results that I have in my life, Like anytime we're kind of outsourcing that in whatever way, like, okay, it's my boss's job or it's my spouse's job to help me get to this place, or parent or whatever it is, whatever the circle is. Anytime and it's usually subconscious, but believing that somebody else is kind of at least partially responsible for my results, then there's some gear that we don't get into really. But when we get really clear that like the results in every area of my life are like an exact reflection of how I'm showing up. Until we really get that connection, I think it's easy in some ways to sort of be victim to circumstances or other people's effect on us, whatever. And in some ways that's really nice. We're like, oh, cool. I kind of don't have to totally take responsibility. I can kind of be a little bit of the victim in this situation. But the reality is we actually are so stuck when that's our mindset. And again, usually it's subconscious in some way. But once we get to this place where we're like, oh, okay, every single result that I have, the amount of money I have in my bank account, the weight that I am when I step on the scale, relationships, the level of depth in the relationships that I have, like all of it reflects me and how I'm showing up in some way. And so if that is the case, I mean, it's kind of like, oh, at first, but then once you go, oh, but if I take full responsibility for this, then the great news is I can do something about that right now. I'm not victim to anything. And once that shifts from being like sort of an asset in some way, like, oh, cool, I don't have to take responsibility, to, oh my gosh, I want to take responsibility because I want a different result in my life. And as soon as I go, like, all of it is something within my control. I can do something. Like, it might not be everything. I might not be able to change the whole thing overnight, but I can do something to, if this is a result I don't like, I can have a different thought about it. I can start creating some different actions around it. I can go, you know what? I'm going to change this thing. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but this is not going to stay like this anymore. I want a different result in my life. So I think it's that personal ownership and responsibility, and at some point getting to the place where I actually want that responsibility. I want it to be mine because then I can do something about it. I'm not stuck anymore. And it might be kind of scary because like I've never taken this much responsibility in my life, but I'm choosing to. I want to. And yeah, I think that's a huge place. Just that, not outsourcing that to anybody else, not putting the blame on whatever. My parents didn't do this enough for me, or my spouse isn't empowering me enough, or my coach isn't pushing me hard enough, or whatever. It's like, these are my results. This is my life and these are my results. And if there's something I don't like, I can do something about it.
Folks, for those of you listening, Talie did not say that everything happening to you is going to be fair either.
Right, right.
It doesn't mean that you are going to be free from circumstances, free from things that come out of left field, but having a level of ownership
Yeah.
and deciding I am still going to create my results that I want in my life from a place of ownership is actually how you get there.
And I want to
And
say too, like, everything is not your fault either. Like, you might have gotten handed some really, really crappy cards. You might have had things happen to you you never would have chosen. You didn't choose, you didn't sign up for. I've had plenty of those things in my life. I'm like, man, I did not sign up for this. And yet it's like, that's the hand I got dealt. And so I can choose what I do with it now, though. Like, I wouldn't have picked that. Like, actually everything in my life at this point, I feel like, yeah, I am so grateful for all of it. A really
yeah,
hard thing. I've had some really hard things, and I'm grateful for them now. I wasn't in the moment, and that's okay. I think we have to be that in order to say, but I'm responsible. Like, I didn't choose this. I didn't sign up for it. I didn't want it. I didn't cause it, but it is what I get to work with now. That's what's in my hand to work with. Like, this is this is what we have. So what am I going to do with that? That's the part. Yeah. It's a good
yeah.
distinction.
So you just said something really beautiful. Like you now have enough time, enough space from whatever the events were to have a level of perspective, to have a level of peace.
Mhm.
What supports you and what supports your clients in maintaining some level of hope
Mhm.
when you're going through it?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
when
that's
the
a great question.
yeah.
That's a great question. I think some of it is having enough life experience now to be able to look back and go, okay, I've overcome some stuff. And I have never in my life been left wanting. Like I have always
Mhm,
had, for me, so much of it is my faith. You know, I've always had God with me, leading
mhm,
me, providing for me, bringing things around me in moments where I'm like, how do I get through this in my life? And I've just been surrounded by really good things. It's interesting. It brings up a conversation I was having with my son. He's 19. We were taking a walk not last night, the night before. And we were just talking about how powerful it is to have a mindset that is looking for the goodness of God in our lives. Like they're
mhm,
really, and that's a frame for anything. Whatever we look for, we will see. It's a part of the way our brain is wired. There's a mechanism called the reticular activating system in our brain. And it's basically that part of our brain that helps filter. It's like if you took in everything in your world, you would be so incredibly overstimulated. And so your brain has learned how to like dial up and help you focus on the things that are really important to you and kind of tune out the things that aren't. So there are certain noises in your house that like other people coming in would be annoyed by or distracted by, and it just you tune it out, right? Because your reticular activating system is like, ice maker not important, or the creaky floor not important. Other things, your super, it's the thing that has you when you're looking for a particular car or some new wardrobe item that you want and you just see it everywhere. Like you just notice it. Like I didn't realize how many, of these were on the road and you're dialed into it. It's your reticular activating system at work going, like we get that this one's important to you, so we're helping you be aware. So that thing can be applied to anything in your life. So if there's something that you want more of, and my son and I were just talking about it in terms of the kindness of God. There's a preacher that I really like, and he just said, I was quoting him to my son. He just said, there hasn't been a single day in I think he said like I don't know, the last 10 years at least, not a single day that I have not seen the kindness of God toward me in my life. And he said, but I look for it. I look for the kindness of God. And so whatever it is that you want to see more of in your life, I think it's start looking for it. So for me around that question, it's easy to look back on my life and go, there has not been a time in my life that I've been left or abandoned or not had what I needed. There might be plenty of times that were challenging or difficult or had me out of my comfort zone, plenty of those. But I can be really grateful for those because there's been so much growth. But there's never been a time that I have been left without what I really need. And so I think some of it is just being able to look back and go, yeah, there's been a consistency and a love from God toward me and so much support. There have been God bringing just the people into my life that I needed in that season. So there's been that too. Yeah.
yeah. I know you well enough to know that prayer is the big part of your day. It's a part of, your daily maintenance, let's call it. What does gratitude look like for you? And
Mm,
how do you support people in creating gratitude in their lives, maybe when things are feeling particularly bleak?
mhm. Yeah, I think some of it is having that honesty about like what is here and working in your life and what isn't. So being able to because I used to I think be a little more Pollyanna or like
Mhm.
everything is great, and not really being honest with myself about the things that weren't working or the things that I was really sad about. So I think it's having that full range of emotions, but for sure, having at least part of that conversation be, what are the things that are working? It's funny, I have this little grateful journal right here sitting in front of me. So that's one of the things I'll just write in my gratitude journal. And that's something I've I've done for a lot of years, different journals over the course of time. And sometimes it's just in my regular journal, but I often just spend time those first, I don't know, few minutes, just thank you for this and thank you for that. And I'm really grateful for this. And, had these beautiful experiences and just kind of bullet point them. So yeah, I think it's focusing on all the beautiful things in your life, because even if there are a lot of hard things there actually are, if you'll give it a little bit of space, a lot of beautiful things too. If it's like the sunset that you got to see last night, or the spring flowers that are coming up, or whatever it is, there is beauty all around us all the time. And there are things in you that are really beautiful to celebrate about who you are. And there are gifts in your life coming toward you from all around. So I think when we have the eyes to see it and we just spend a little bit of time making space for it, it really does help fill, and it changes our state. And Tony Robbins talks a lot about your state and changing, like whatever emotional state you live at most regularly is the kind of result you're going to have in your life. And so just having things that work for you to get yourself into the kind of state that you most regularly want to be in. So whether that's like, I know for me, if I get outside and I'm in nature and I walk and I just let myself be really present in that moment, not doing a whole bunch of other things, but just, I don't know, take my shoes off and walk in the grass and feel that and really look at color of whatever it is, smell, and just engage my senses and be really present. I know that's something that grounds me like very profoundly. I know journaling every morning is something for me. So it's like, what are the things for you that put you into an emotional state that you want to be in? Because the reality is your life is made up of all of those little micro moments. So the more of those you can really be present to and engage yourself in an emotional way of being that you really want to be in, then that is the life that you're living. Is like those moments all stacked up together. So the more of those you can create to be a life that you really want to live, the more you're going to have the life that you want to live.
So good. So
Yeah.
good. So you just said something that I don't know if I've actually ever heard on another podcast answered, or if it's been written anywhere, but I would love your thoughts on this. There's always going to be I call them the fidgety skeptics, the people that are like, okay, that's great, Talie, but
Yeah.
like, and they'll have all their reasons for why they're not going to practice gratitude. Is the secret to gratitude that it pulls you into the present, excuse me, into the here and now, in your opinion?
Think that's one of the powerful things. But even like for me, often gratitude is about reflecting on my last 24 hours. So it's not even
Mm,
just that it's putting me in, like if I'm sitting in my spot on the couch with my tea, and it's not always pulling me into that moment. Sometimes it's pulling me into that like moment that I had with my nieces just laughing, or like walking with my son and just the depth of conversation we had, or the amazing meal we made last night. It could be a lot of things that I'm feeling grateful for that aren't necessarily in that moment, but they are dialing me into, I'm like reliving some of the highlight experiences of my last
yeah.
24 hours, or really just thinking about, oh my gosh, I just feel so grateful for that conversation I got to have with my dad, even though it was like kind of challenging in moments there. It's like, wow, what a powerful conversation. We got to really talk about some awesome things. So I don't know. I think it's just gratitude puts you into a state where you are focusing on the things that are working. You're focusing on the things that make you really have that sense of appreciation. And it can be for so many different things. But reliving it, like in that moment, I'm getting to relive some of those beautiful things that I got to experience. And even that, what's the word I'm trying to think of? The recall, I guess, like where you stored that memory somewhere in your brain, and
Mhm.
bringing it back up and almost reliving it again. It's like you have that neural pathway strengthened. And so it does something. And the more often you are just in that state of, oh my gosh, look at all the things that are are like so amazing about my life. You reinforce this belief that you have this beautiful life that you're living. And there's something powerful about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not pretending your problems don't exist. You're not ignoring them. You're just choosing to put your energy and your focus into what's working and what's lighting you up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, so good. So good. Thank you for explaining it that way.
Yeah, of course.
Truly, truly don't feel like I've ever heard it explained quite like that. So glad that the listeners got to have that on this episode. So I wanted to connect in with you. You know, I know that coaching is something that is becoming a bigger and bigger entity in the
Mm,
public space. It's becoming much more widely recognized and
yeah.
integrated into all
Mhm.
walks of life and different facets of the community.
Yeah.
What do you feel like are the biggest ways that you've seen coaching making a difference in our
Mm.
world?
Yeah, and I think, you bring that up that it's making its way into so many different industries and areas of life. And I think it's because it just really does work. It accelerates your progress in any area that you want to make progress in. If you give it time and attention, you set aside that time. Like I meet with my clients on a weekly basis. So they have an hour every week and it just creates this incredible momentum. So yeah, I think that's
Mhm,
a big piece of it. And just the nature of coaching dials you more into yourself and what you think and believe and feel and, what it is you're trying to create in your life. And so you have all of these people getting so much more dialed into what really matters and then achieving their goals. So I think it does change. I mean, it changes any environment. Anytime you have somebody showing up like that, it changes the environment that they're in. So it's really powerful. And then I see it just starting to make its way into other places. Like I have a few students that are in my training right now that are all in the educational space, and they are so excited to see like what is education. Like they work, in um, elementary through high school. They work in those spaces. So, not college, but younger kids, like
mhm,
what is it gonna do when these kids start really understanding how to listen well? And what's the difference it's gonna make when we have teachers that know how to draw kids out in that way and think so powerfully for themselves? And like, oh man, just seeing that and the difference it's gonna make in administration when you have coaches kind of between the teachers and the principals, when you have somebody who's in there supporting the teachers to really feel seen and heard and
mhm.
identify what's not working and come to their own solutions, like it's going to be powerful. We have some students who are getting ready to step into the program who are working with people who have been rescued from human trafficking, and they really want to be able to take these skills and to be able to work with the people that are coming out of that in such powerful ways. It's really cool to see all the different places this is starting to impact. I've got some students who really want to bring coaching into spaces in terms of first responder. There's a lot of trauma that goes on in that, there's a lot
Mhm.
of intense and medical professionals, people who are doing surgeries and losing patients and like how do you navigate a lot of that emotionally and having real support there for individuals that are going through a lot in those ways to be able to really powerfully process and decide the meaning that they want to make out of all. It's really really cool, the places that this is really beginning to touch and have impact. I love it. It's really amazing. Thanks for asking.
Oh, yeah, of course. And, you know, everybody that I feel like you mentioned as a group, whether it's first responders, survivors of human trafficking, like it's just so wonderful that these types of resources are becoming more and more available. And, you know, you mentioned students as well. I just think back to who I was as a student and my ability to handle stress. And, you know, I was really good at achieving and checking the boxes, but I was miserable doing it the
Mhm.
entire time, you know, and I just think of our children's way of being, excuse me, our children's well-being, and what's possible for them as future leaders, future, people that are going to be shaping this world long after we're gone.
Yeah.
And so
They
it's a,
get these kind of skills at a younger and younger age. I'm just like, oh man, amazing.
yeah,
It's going to shape so much of the community and the culture that we live in. Really
yeah,
powerful. Yeah. And so much of it really is like emotional intelligence kinds of skills. Like coaches just are trained to be like highly emotionally intelligent. They're just emotional intelligence is really dialed into, being with another person and really listening powerfully and listening well and asking questions and creating all of that trust and safety. It's yeah. I mean, they're amazing skills that go outside of the career and into every relationship. My students say that a lot. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this is impacting every relationship that I have. It's so great. It's made my marriage so much better." It's great. It's great.
so I'm feel like I'm hearing you say that maybe emotional intelligence is a talent, and that maybe some people have more of it than others, but it can also be trained. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, we all have it to some degree. It's how we survive in the world of relationships. And some people I think are maybe dialed in a little bit more to it, or um they maybe flow in it a little bit more naturally, or they have higher empathy, or whatever the things are that they lean on that help have great relationships. But yes, absolutely it can be trained. I mean, as long as someone's not um there's what is it like psychotic where it's like there's something shut off there for the empathy, just it
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
work. Yeah. For the normal average person, I would say absolutely it can be trained for
yeah,
sure. Mhm.
yeah. And, folks, make sure you hear it first. I have been through one of Tally's programs, and not only has it made me a better coach, but it's made me a better, I think, just human being. Like, my relationships have gotten significantly better and stronger just in my life because I know how to listen in a way that I didn't before. And, Tally, just to say it to you, like, this podcast in a lot of ways wouldn't exist if I hadn't been through your program, because dialing in and listening on this level is not something that I was able to do.
I love that.
Uh,
And I love thinking about all the people that are being touched through this podcast. I mean, that's beautiful. I love seeing the ripple effects, like the things that we do that we feel called to do and offer into the world and how they touch other people and then how that goes out. And I just think about like that for you, your listeners listening to something and like taking a piece of something from
mhm.
every conversation that they listen to and implementing that into their life, and then how that changes the circles that they're in and the people that they're impacting and how it's just beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you. I take that and I receive that. And, in the interest of time here, I want to make sure folks know how to get in contact with you if they would like to learn more about what it means to become a certified coach, or even if they just want to learn more about you, Tally, and possibly working with you directly.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always email me leadersaliveicf@gmail.com. That's why you can get in touch with us. If you want to follow social media, my training is Certified Coaching Academy, or my personal Instagram is Coaching with Talie. You can find me there, direct message me. You can find us on Facebook. My company name is Leaders Alive, so you can find us on Facebook at Leaders Alive, or we have a page, Certified Coaching Academy, or Talie Davis-Weir you want my personal. So always you can get a hold of me. Would love to connect. If you have any questions, if you just want to know more about it, one of the things I do is just a complimentary session with people who are genuinely interested in becoming a coach. So do a complimentary session with you and really look at your vision and see if it's aligned, see if it's a fit for you. We're kind of selective about who we bring in just because it's somebody like it's a group of people you're going to be with for a year-long training. So we want to make sure, is this a fit for you? Do we know we're going to get you results, that kind of thing. So yeah, just give you a complimentary session and help you get really clear about the vision that you have and see if see if it even makes sense for you. See if it is a fit. But yeah, absolutely. Would love to connect.
Yeah, and folks, I'm going to make sure all of Talie's information is made readily available in the description, in the show notes, wherever you are catching this episode. And Talie, I know that we did this the last time you were on, but it has been a while.
Mhm.
Something I ask everybody on this show. What are you acknowledging yourself for today?
Oh, wow. I forgot about that question. That's a good one. This has probably been the hardest year of my life. I've had loss at a couple different levels that have been really just a lot. And so I think I want to acknowledge myself for leaning in with God, with the support around me. And really, I feel like it has caused me to tune into my own heart even more, to really be present with myself and to like take really good care of myself. I've been doing a lot of inner child work and it's just powerful inner healing. Done a lot of fasting and just several different things that have, I think, taken me even further, like taking pain and going, how can this be used for good in my life? And actually, I feel like every time I go through something really challenging, something painful, it ends up being something that I give out of. And so I think just leaning into the growth of it all, leaning into the emotion of it and the pain and the challenge and finding ways to, I think, I don't know, find more of myself in it and more of God in it. Yeah.
That was such a good answer. I could have asked you a couple other questions, but we are at time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stu. It's
Of
always good to be
course.
with you. Thanks for inviting me back. Good to be
No.
with you and with your people, your listeners here. Thanks guys for taking the time to listen to this. Good to be together.
And folks, I thank you also for joining us this week. Again, this has been another episode of Your Inside Track to Success. Again, if you got any value from this episode, which I know you did, please share it out with anybody and everybody so that people like Talie can reach more people and have a bigger and broader impact with the work that they're up to. But y'all, this has been another episode. Please be sure to check back in next Wednesday with another amazing guest or message. We'll see you there.